Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Crypto. I am Bitcoin Jay here with my co-host, the BTC Queen. How you doing today, BTC Queen?
I'm losing my mind, Jay. There's so much going on. So much going on. First
Yeah.
of all, you're here in Miami. Did you happen to hear a helicopter outside of your house this morning?
I did not. At what time?
About 9 a.m. There was a helicopter right outside in the arena taking down the FTX sign finally.
Wow, that's crazy. No, I didn't hear
Yeah.
that. I didn't hear it. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I was on a call this morning at 7 and I was making coffee and I look out. I was like, oh, there's a helicopter. And then I realized that they were pulling things off of the top of the arena
Yeah,
and setting it down. So that FTX sign is officially off the arena.
that's crazy.
That's where the day started.
That's the end of an era there with FTX,
Yeah.
and it was a very short-lived era there. I think now now
Yeah.
the now the arena's called Casenia. What is it called?
Something like that. I think it's like some real estate thing. I'm honestly not
I
sure, to
well
be
I
quite frank.
it starts with a K, and I know it ends with a
Yeah.
ya. And I think when I looked it up, because I had no idea what it was, and it's something to do with like cyber security or something like that. I don't know. I don't really know, but yeah, I'm not a
It
fan
could
of the
be.
name.
Yeah, no, I don't know what they are, what they're doing, but ugh,
Yeah. So
here we are.
so
Here we
yeah, yeah, so today we have a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things going on in the market that we're going to cover today in today's episode of Let's Talk Crypto. And we're going to be starting off with, everything that's happened over pretty much, I would say, like the last 12 hours probably, that we've gotten a bunch of stuff with the SEC, with Coinbase, and then we've gotten some other stuff that just recently happened as well that the BTC Queen here is going to be talking about. First, we're going to start with the prices. We're going to look over how everything's going in the market. We're going to jump into some news. Then we're going to jump into the market analysis and then some Q&A at the end. So if you guys have any questions about anything and you're tuned in live, make sure that that you post those questions in the comment section, and then we'll cover that at the end of the video. And of course, guys, if you guys miss any of these episodes, any of these live streams for some reason, we are now officially on a podcast, right? You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google, on Amazon. So basically, all the big boys, you can find our podcast there. You just got to search for Let's Talk Crypto or Bitcoin Daily, and that should pop up for you guys. So without further ado, let's jump right into what's going on this week in the market. Let's start off with prices, right? Let's take a look at what Bitcoin's doing right now. As you guys can see, prices are currently sitting at $29,200. And we've kind of been stuck there today. We're pretty much there last week as well. You can see last week we had kind of we had a red week last week. The total percentage that Bitcoin went down was 2.5%. So it was a down week last week. So far this week, we pushed up a little bit over in the morning, and now we're just kind of sitting at that 29,200 level. So we're going to take a look at that further during the Bitcoin analysis. Let's take a look at how the rest of the market is doing. Then I'm going to refresh the page here just to make sure we have the latest numbers. And we're going to be taking a look at the market at the last 7 days to see if there's anything that's popping up. And right now there really isn't. In the top 10, the one that's moved the most is Dogecoin, up about 5.5%. And that has to do with everything that's been going on over at Elon Musk land, or Twitter, or I guess now we call it X, the everything platform, right? They've found a code within the platform for some crypto payments, and Elon Musk has been speaking about how he wants to make it a financial platform as well. And remember, back in when what was it? When during the PayPal days, Elon Musk was creating the first online payment system, an online banking system, which led to PayPal, and now he's bringing it back because it used to be called X, and then it went from X to PayPal, and then now he's bringing back that X. So
Full circle.
yeah, exactly. So now, because back then, I mean, he still was very rich, but I guess he wasn't the richest man in the world type rich. So now that he's the richest man in the world type rich, he's bringing it back. His original idea, the X platform with the everything app. So because of that, Dogecoin has been performing somewhat well. Let's see what else. If we continue down here, we see that Polygon Matic is down 4% over the last 7 days. Shiba is up 11% over the last 7 days. Let me see anything else that stands out. Uniswap up over 13%. And that's pretty much it in the top 25 here that I looked over. If we look over the top 100 for the top crypto gainers and losers in the last week, we'll see that Flexcoin is at the #1 spot with 19% over the last 7 days. Maker is up at #2 with 18% over the last 7 days. Then we have Uniswap at 13%, Shiba at 11%. And the top losers in the past week is going to be, of course, Curve DAO, which just had a hack for, what was it, $24 million, something like that.
$24 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite not great.
Yeah, so they're down 16%. That's not a surprise. Toncoin down 12%. Synthetics down 9%. ApeCoin down 8%. And Mantle down 7%. So there's really not too much going on. It's very small moves in both directions is what we've seen there. Moving on to the economic calendar for the week. There's really not too much going on this week on the economic calendar. We have more or less a quiet week. The biggest thing is probably going to be the unemployment rates on Friday. So that's the 4th of August on Friday. That's going to be gonna come out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. Again, I don't think that's going to have a big impact in the market, but it can, bring some sort of volatility into the market depending on how those reports come out. But the next biggest thing on the economic calendar for us is going to be next week. So last week, of course, we had the interest rate hike decisions. And we did get the 25 basis points hike as we expected. We spoke about that on last week's live stream podcast. Now, next week, we're going to get the inflation rate data, as you guys can see here. That's going to happen at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 10th of August. Right now, I don't see a consensus as of yet. So we'll check back in next week, next Monday, to see what that potential consensus might be. Well, I'm sorry. We actually, we're at 3%. Yeah, so we're still waiting on a consensus here. At least on this site, it's not updated. So it's okay, because next Monday when we do the live stream, we'll be able to go over the consensus in the forecast and all that, and dig a little bit deeper into that. So let's see, anything else that I wanted to cover here in the beginning? I think that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and jump into the news here, because we do have quite a lot of news today. So I'm gonna hand it over to the BTC Queen.
First and foremost, hi guys. I hope that your morning is doing well. Like I said, I woke up my morning to basically seeing the FTX sign being pulled off that arena finally. It was covered at one point in time. They claimed they took it down, but they never took it down. They had taken the one on the front down, but that there was a big sign on the top of the building, which was crazy, because in order to get that sign on top of the building, they had to change rules, like municipality rules, in order to even get it up there. So quite the end of an era. So anyways, let's open up a new era. First and foremost, breaking, if you haven't heard as of yet, Richard Hart, the founder of Hex, has been served by the SEC just a little over an hour ago. Now, this is a very interesting case, because everyone's like, oh, this guy's a scammer. Richard Hart this, Richard Hart that. There's actually a movie coming out that talks about everything this guy has done. and kind of takes like both, like, sides of the story. I think it's called High Stakes. And it's insane because I saw my friend in there. Her name's Crypty. She's someone within the crypto space. We used to have a podcast together. And she's like talking on there, like, one day I just woke up and I could buy a house cash. And I was like, what? This is insane. But here is Richard Hart being blamed by the SEC, saying that he has raised over $1 billion in unregistered securities, and has spent at least $12 million of investor money on expensive jewelry, cards, and the 555 carat black diamond, which is apparently the biggest black diamond in the world. We all know Richard Hart has his luxurious things that he goes on and online and flex, and the SEC is like, we're coming after you.
That is wild.
Now, what's interesting about this case is there's a part in the case where it starts talking about the district where these things were created / operated, because we all know that Hex is technically a fork of Uniswap in a sense. And I think he also talked about Pulse Chain, which is the same thing. It's all a fork of Uniswap. And it says that because they are, they do transactions and they use Uniswap, that means that they are located within the district of Brooklyn, New York. So therefore, they are operating out of Brooklyn, New York, which is insane. They're deeming that this thing online, Pulse Chain, is in Brooklyn, New York. Like, they're giving it a physical location, and therefore, because they're operating out of this physical location, and mind you, New York has much stricter crypto rules than other places, they are pinpointing it that Pulse Chain and all that stuff is operating out of there, which is insane. There is some insane allegations on here, and it is wild. And like, the questions are you saying that Uniswap is the one responsible for these things, and that the developer and its code is responsible for these things that have been created? And it's like, there's a lot of questions flying in the air. The community is definitely on top of this one. And oh man, this is going to be a fun one, guys.
Sounds like
going to be a fun one.
It sounds like the SEC is getting desperate, is what it looks like to me.
Man.
They are.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. I'm sure. So part of our news today, we were going to talk about QuantStamp, because QuantStamp was served earlier last week by the SEC in the middle of the week, and they actually settled. So they settled for like, I think like $1 million or $2 million, something like that. It wasn't very much, but because they raised $28 million in their initial offering, and whatever, defrauded investors or promised investors raised, or whatever it is, they paid out, and it's like, they keep doing it because there's companies that will do that instead of go to court. But when they do go to court, a lot of the times those companies lose. There was a recent company who was taken to court by the SEC, and they lost. It was called Spikes Futures. It's a volatile index that works in conjunction with crypto, and pretty much the court said that the claims by the SEC were arbitrary and disappropriate. Okay, so they, again, maybe you didn't hear about this one, but that was just earlier in the week, last week, that got shut down by the courts. That's 2 losses. That's 2 losses back to back. Okay, Ripple and Spikes Future, 2 losses slammed down by the court back to back. So people who are settling, do not fear. If you feel like legitimately you can't win and you don't want to deal with it, fine, pay out. But otherwise, it is not looking good for these guys, because the way that these jurisdictions work and the lack of clarity is coming back to bite them in the ass. I think that's what's happening, because it's just wild out here. It's insane. It's insanity.
It's ridiculous. Like, I think ridiculous is the best word to because they're always talking about, oh, that the reason that they're doing this is because there needs to be everyone needs to know up front what they're doing, what's going on behind the scenes, this and that. Everything has to be transparent. And then at the same time, they won't even give clarity on what the law or the rules are. Like the report that came out this morning about the SEC when they went after Coinbase. They told them to delist everything except Bitcoin because everything was considered a security. And then when Coinbase told them that's not how we interpret the law, what laws are these things breaking that you're considering them securities? They're like, oh, don't worry about it. Like they didn't even give an explanation, and they feel like they have no, they don't have to give an explanation. Like I don't know, I this is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like how are they going after these platforms, calling everything securities, and then they can't explain what a security is and then when asked, they're like, oh no, we can't speak on that one, on why that one is a security. But if you go back to 1943 in the Howey test, like that's literally always the same answer over and over and over again. And then when they were in front of Congress being asked these same questions, they did not have answers. So there's obviously zero clarity. But when you ask them, they're like, the clarity is there, like it's been there. But they're like, all right, just tell us what the clarity is. What are the exact laws? You just check the SEC website, it's there. But you're like bro, it does not make sense. I don't understand it.
Yeah, no, it's not great.
Yeah.
To be honest, but here we are. So a little clarity on the Curve Finance hack, because it is technically still ongoing because people are actually trying to recover funds. And like Jay mentioned, Curve is down, way down, probably the biggest loser. So as we know with these hacks, the number just keeps growing. So I had said it was 24 million. It looks like at some point in time it was upwards of 70, and in some cases there's people reporting that it was $100 million. So wow, yeah. So it seems to vary depending on what's been recovered and what hasn't at the time of the reporting. But as of 2 hours ago, it looks like some people are saying that it was up to 70. Now, some of the funds have been recovered. I think there's about $40 million still that was not recovered, that is up in the air.
Wow.
The crazy thing about these hacks is that it's from a bug. There was a bug somewhere, and it's something that, a researcher or, one of those developers that kind of like do like testing, it was like a deep bug is what they called it. There are things that they miss and they wouldn't look for to begin with, which is kind of insane. And that's all I have to say about that. But what's even crazier is, in order to have had this hack go through, there are bots that front run the cost of these transactions. So in order for this guy to get all this money out of the pool, the person was pushing some like major like fees being broadcasted to the validators, which of course the validators accepted, which means these validators are legitimately accepting stolen funds, which is not good. Okay, so the longest block reward in history was awarded because of this hack, because an MEB bot front run the exploit. A $1 million block. $1 million block was validated on this network in order to make this exploit happen. And 100%, those funds were not, they're stolen funds, pretty much. And like, what do you do? What do you do in that situation, right? You can't actually recuperate those funds that get rewarded to, these validators. It just gets so messy. So it's actually kind of wild, the way that happened. I just wow. There's only been about $5.4 million that have been retreated, I believe. Which is just wild. It's just wild.
Yeah.
There has been approximately over $200 million stolen this year. As of June, probably it's up to like almost 300 now. Just this year alone, by the way, guys, just this year alone, that's how much funny money has been stolen. This is just so highly unsustainable. It just, oh God, it makes me cringe. These are the things that make me cringe about crypto, because it's so unsustainable. Liquid staking is a lot of funny money to be made is all I see, but that's probably the least more interesting side of things, in like my opinion, because it is literally like we're talking about our future in this thing, right? Like we're talking about yeah, man. Good luck out there, guys. Good luck. Happy trading. Just be safe, and probably just don't leave your money in pools for very long, because man, I don't even know what to say anymore. Just like, again, hack after hack after hack. Curve, one of the largest ones, hacked, drained. Got to be careful.
It's so risky.
It's so risky. It's crazy. It's crazy. You know, if you threw $500 in there, you lost it, whatever. But it's like, if you're literally just like compounding like more money on top of more money on top of more money on top of more money, and just like, oh man, I have so much money, and you just lose it all. It's just like, oh,
yep. It's
the worst. It's the worst. But
that's why never have all your eggs in one basket.
Nope, don't do it. Don't do it. So anyways, last but not least in the news is going to be about these ETFs. So Grayscale was yelling at the SEC, hey man, please give us some news about these ETFs just to prove them all already. We don't need to continue, drawing this along. And Gary Gensler came out and he didn't really comment it, because he's like, hey, cryptos are, volatile. I can't actually say anything about these Bitcoin ETFs because it's presented to a committee of 5 people, so no comment. But this stuff is so risky and it's not too great and blah, 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 blah. Honestly, this has been prolonged a little longer than I imagined it to be. I thought that we would have just got it over with by now. I thought it was just going to come out with all like the BlackRock news and everybody like trying to push forward on these ETFs, and then nothing's happened yet. So quite shocked / surprised that nothing in fact has happened yet. I don't know. I guess let's watch closely over the next month, see if it gets approved. I don't see what the holdup is.
Is there a?
Is there
a
Bitcoin,
deadline?
right? What is it?
Is there a deadline?
I have not seen a deadline. No.
'Cause I think they have like
I,
they have a certain, after the filing, they have like a certain amount of time to respond, right? Is that how it works?
well, I mean, they'll respond or they'll say nothing, right? They'll just like
They push it back or something?
leave it up in the air. Be like,
Mm,
ah, yeah. It's just the same thing as we've seen in the past.
right.
Is like the worst that can happen. Best case scenario gets passed. Worst case scenario, we're just gonna keep on seeing the loop of okay, well, we'll think about it.
Yeah.
So that's that. And oh, I guess in case you guys didn't catch Jay at the beginning talking about the SEC basically telling Coinbase before they sued them that they should only transact in Bitcoin. Yes, that happened. Basically, the SEC said, hey, we told you, Coinbase, you can only do Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the only thing you should be touching. And
Hmm.
you know, it's funny because they keep flip-flopping on Ethereum.
Yep.
What's to do with Ethereum? What do they have nothing to say about this Ethereum? And it's just wild, guys. Wild west out here. So funny money.
A lot of funny money. I just watched so I just watched, what was it? I watched a movie yesterday on Apple TV. It's called The Beanie Bubble. It just came out. Have you seen it?
The Beanie Bubble.
Yeah, so it's about the Beanie Babies.
Oh, I see.
You remember Beanie Babies back like in the
I
90s?
know the Beanie Babies. I don't know. I've never heard of the Beanie Bubble.
Yeah, so that's a movie that just came out. It's very weird because the lead role is played by what's his name? I can never pronounce his last name. Zach Galif something. The guy from the Hangover, the funny guy from the
Okay.
Hangover. You know what I'm talking
Okay.
about? The chunky guy with the beard.
Yeah, that guy. Okay.
Yeah, so he's in it. He plays a lead role, but it's like a serious role. So it was weird to see him like that, and he doesn't have a beard. He's like clean cut, so it's very weird. But the movie was good. The only thing at the end, they like just took shots, like they like just took shots at crypto basically. They, at the end of it, they showed that it's called the Beanie Bubble because at the end of it, the that bubble popped for Beanie Babies, right? Because they used to sell it and people would resell it on eBay. This is when the internet was first starting. They people would resell it on eBay for like thousands of dollars, and people were making crazy
Right.
amounts of money. And then eventually they overproduced basically the Beanie Babies, so the bubble popped because it wouldn't hold its value since they were just mass producing these products, right?
Right.
So then at the end of it, it's like, oh, every few years, we see the same thing happen over and over again. And then like they're talking about like the bubble popping, and then they start showing crypto and NFTs and this and that. But it was everything crypto related. I was like, damn, what are these uncalled shots against crypto for? Jeez. I was like,
That's pretty
wow.
great. That's
Yeah.
pretty great.
Like
That's pretty great.
yeah, like I understand, like especially like NFTs and stuff like that, but damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
That's
definitely
funny.
took some shots against crypto in that movie at the end of it. Yeah. Like for no reason. Like crypto has nothing to do with Beanie Babies.
They'll
Like,
be sorry. They'll be sorry. Everyone who laughed at Bitcoin, 5 years from now, they'll be sorry.
oh,
They'll be sorry.
100%. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this market analysis. Before we jump in, make sure that if you guys have any questions about anything that we've covered today, or just any crypto questions in general that you want to ask us, drop it in the comments if you're watching live, and we will answer it now at the end of this during the Q&A portion of this. And if you guys are listening after the fact or on the podcast, I appreciate you guys for listening. I do ask for questions on Instagram in my stories on Sundays. So if you guys want your questions included in these live streams, you can drop it on there on Sundays as well, if you can't catch us while we're live. So no problem at all. Just set your schedule for Sunday and just check us out on bitcoin.daily on Instagram, when we put the stories up. you could put your questions up on there. So let's go ahead and swap over here to the main monitor. Here we go. So as you guys can see, Bitcoin's price is currently down a little bit from where we started, which is rare because usually the Bitcoin's price goes up during our live stream. So I don't know what we've said that might have upset the market so far to drop the price by $30, but hopefully we can fix it here during this next portion of the live stream. So let's go ahead and take a look here. We're gonna start off here. Basically, in the monthly from last week, in the monthly, nothing has changed, right? Everything still looks pretty much exactly the same. Let me change here. So everything on the chart looks pretty much the same. We have still the main resistance is up here, $31,000, right? We have the main liquidity level to the upside is still $31,900, which is basically the high for the year, right? Then we have the main liquidity level to the downside at around $24,000, and then we have the trend line. Right now, the trend line sits around $27,500. So in that range, not that exact number, but in that range. So everything is still looking the same on the monthly time frame. Remember, today is actually the last day of this month, the last day of July. So the way it's looking right now that it's gonna close is, it's gonna be a red month, down about 4% on the month for Bitcoin. So, a pretty slow month after the big move up last month where we moved up 12%. So let's see, we'll be looking into what's going to happen, what we can potentially see here in August, and which is starts tomorrow. So let's jump into the weekly chart here. Again, we're seeing the same thing. We can see here it's a little bit more clearer with the trend here, with the how it's been moving. You can see we've retested this trend line multiple times, starting all the way back in November. So this trend line began in November. We retested it back in January before the big massive move to the upside. We retested it again in March before continuing up. Retested it back in June before continuing up. And now it looks like we're pretty much heading towards the trend line once again. And again, the trend line currently sits around that $27,000 between $500 to $800. So that's a big support level that we're going to be watching here as we go forward this week and into the next month, because we want to definitely see this trend line hold, and we want to make sure that this higher high, higher low structure holds. So and usually, after hitting a bottom, once this higher high and higher low structure begins to build, this usually points to the start of the next bull market, right? Even though we might not be in a bull market per se right now, this we could look back on this probably in the next few months and be like, okay, 15,000 was obviously the bottom, and when we started printing higher highs and higher lows, that was the the obvious time for the beginning of that bull market. So what we want to see here, the main thing we want to see is the first thing, we want this trend line to hold, right? So again, I told you guys $27,000, mid $27,000 range. The next thing is we want to make sure that this low right here, this was the previous higher low. We want to make sure that the price doesn't go below that level. So that's currently sitting at about $24,000. So those are the two main levels to the downside that we want to watch, and that we want to make sure that price stays above, right? So we have the trend line at 27,000. We have the previous higher low at 24,000. So those are the first two things we're watching. Now the next thing is, okay, so where in the most immediate future, where can the price go next, right? And for that, we've kind of been looking at liquidity levels to kind of gauge where there's a lot of liquidity, because remember, markets like to it likes to look for liquidity and likes to retest liquidity. It likes to grab that liquidity because that's where big players can fill their orders without, having a huge average basically on their price. So for example, if a big player right now at $29,000 is trying to fill a big position, if there's not a lot of liquidity here, the price is gonna start moving up as they eat up all those orders, right? So they might begin filling in their order at $29,188. By the end of it, they might have pushed the price all the way up to like $31,000, and their average price is somewhere in the middle. So because of that, they've really lost a lot of value in their order. Because they weren't able to just get all their money in at 29,000. It got an average in all the way up to 31,000, whatever that number may be. So what happens is, if you can do that, if you fill your orders in an area with a lot of liquidity, then your average price is going to be a lot closer to where that entry is. So that's one of the ways to look at liquidity, and that's one of the reasons why the market likes to return to liquidity so often. So the main things we look for liquidity levels, and we can do that by using heat maps of liquidation areas. So that's basically where there's a lot of people that might get liquidated with their long positions. So for example, if we're looking at this monthly chart here, this is a heat map, and we can see the bright yellow spots. Those are the levels that there's a lot of liquidations, right? So that means people that are currently in leveraged positions in Bitcoin, if prices go down here, they're gonna get liquidated, right? So we can see right now there's a lot of liquidity down here closer to that $28,000 area. And we can see there's even more liquidity down here in that $27,000 area, which is where our trend line is. And the most liquidity right now on this monthly chart is down here at $24,000 to $25,000 area. So that's going to be the majority of liquidity is going to be down here. Now, I don't think that that the price would drop down to that $24,000, $25,000 area, because remember, $24,000, that's where our previous higher low is sitting. So even though it is a possibility, I think that's a worst case scenario, right? I think there has to be, something bad within the crypto space that's really bad to drop the price all the way down here. So I'm looking for the next possible big area of liquidity, and that ends up being that $27,000 range. So that's currently my target. If we continue down, that $27,000 range is where I'm looking to start opening long orders again. Now, we're always looking for confluence. So we already spoke about multiple things there. We spoke about, I just showed you right now, there's a lot of liquidity at 27,000, and we just spoke about this trend line. Where's that support on the trend line that's been holding up the price ever since last year in November when we bottomed out? That trend line is sitting at $27,000. So that gives us a lot of confluence for that level, that target of $27,000, if we are to continue, trending down, kind of consolidating down from that previous move. You can see that last time we had that massive move, we consolidated all the way down to the trend line and then continued up. And you can see that we got a bullish pin bar here at the trend line. So I would love to see something like that as well. If we consolidate all the way down here to the trend line, get some sort of candle like this, a bullish pin bar, which basically lets you know, okay, there's a lot more buyers than sellers here. Buyers are now taking control of the market. And that's a reversal signal for prices to move back up. Like we saw here, then after that bullish pin bar at a support, we got a massive move up. So I'd be looking for something like that. And on the opposite end of that, you can see here, when we got to resistance, what do we get here? This is a bearish pin bar, and that was basically a hint towards a correction, pullback, retracement, whatever you want to call it, but it moved back down, and that's exactly what we've got over the last 3 weeks here. Now, we did get a bullish pin bar here the week after that, but this one didn't have the confluence that this had, because this bearish pin bar, it was at a major resistance level. this bullish pin bar was still pretty much at a resistance level. So not as much confluence as the bearish one there. So let's move on to the daily here, the daily time frame. And this is where I like to start looking for setups, right? So the way I look at it is the weekly time frame. We're looking for the overall, what's going on overall in the market. What are prices telling us? What are things showing us overall? Because we want to know the overall idea of which way things are going, and then based on that, we start looking for possible positions. So we spoke about support and resistance here. We spoke about the chart pattern here, and we've taken a look at some of the liquidity levels as well. As far as imbalances, you can see that, of course, we have this big green candle here. That's a big imbalance there. So if we pull up the fair value gap indicator here, it shows us that imbalance, right? So this big green box, that's an imbalance area. That means that the price just moved up so fast, it left a lot of liquidity behind, right? And what you'll see a lot of times, if we look back on this previous imbalance, look at where price went. It went right to the halfway mark, basically, of this imbalance. This box here got filled completely. This box didn't get filled completely. And we're not always expecting these boxes to get filled, but usually, and a lot of the times, they get filled at least at halfway mark, that 50% mark. So if we look here at the 50% mark, this sits around $28,000. If we look at the full thing, it sits at the bottom of it is around $27,000. So again, that's giving us more confluence for that $27,000 area that we've been speaking about once we take a look at those imbalances. And then the last thing I like to look for as well is wicks. So I like to look for wicks because we already know from looking at history, and I posted a short video on this last week, price loves to fill wicks. Right now, we have a wick to the bottom side here and a wick to the top side here. So again, I don't think we're gonna fall to this end right here. I think that's a worst case scenario type of thing. So I'm looking for the $27,000 target as a support here. And then I'm gonna look for a move back up to probably push for these the liquidities up here, right? We're looking at the $31,900 liquidity level. And guess what? There's a big wick up here, and halfway of that wick is sitting at about $31,000. The full wick is at that $31,900 level. So that's gonna be a once we start seeing support here and a move back up, that's gonna be the first target here that we're gonna be watching. So knowing all of that, and now looking at the daily, let me clear some of the stuff off here. Let's actually go to this chart here. Now we can kind of get a better idea, better understanding really of what's been going on in the market on the day-to-day basis. You can see here, we basically were stuck with trading within this range for a few weeks here. And then last week we lost that level. So last week here, we lost that level, which was at $30,000. But now look at where we're sitting. We're sitting at another support. This yellow line here, that's a Fibonacci level. That's at 61.8% level. So, because of that, we know, okay, so there is some support here. There is the potential to play a long position here. But you do have to be careful because remember, there still is a lot of liquidity down here in this range, and the trend line support is sitting down here at the $27,000 area. So those are all things we're taking into account. So how can we play this week? So the first thing is, if you want to take a shot down here on this Fibonacci support level, which is around that $29,000 range, you can. I wouldn't be upset with that. The way I would play it is I would probably look to open the trade as close as I can to the $29,000 area, and then probably have a stop loss below the low wick, right? And this wick sits at 28,827, right? So we know that price loves to go just below the wick and then move back up. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. So I like to give it a little bit more space. I would probably be putting my stop loss around 28,750. And still, that can get stopped out. But if that gets stopped out, I'm fine with taking that loss there, right? And then looking to get back in closer to this support level. So that's the first play I'm probably looking to do. Take a long position at 29, stop loss below this recent low. If we get stopped out, then I'm looking for a long here towards this trend line here, that mid $27,000 area. Also, $28,000 is a support. It's historically been a support. If we look back, let's look again at the weekly, just to look at that $28,000 level. We could see $28,000. Let's see. Over here is 25. 28 is right about here. So looking at 28 grand, we can see over here it was a resistance multiple times. Again, it was a resistance over here. So because of that, $28,000 is also a potential entry if we see that it's holding. So again, if we fall below this level and we see that 28,000 is kind of holding up, that's another potential place to enter. And again, that's very close to this trend line, right? So I wouldn't mind doing a play where I'm looking for potentially a initial entry around $28,000, which would be in this level right here, kind of an initial entry right here. And then if we drop down lower, kind of ladder in my entries, right? Get a second entry in that mid $27,000 area, which would be on that trend line. So I wouldn't mind doing something like that where I kind of ladder my entries there and then target, have targets up at $29,000, up at $30,000, etc. I think that's a good risk to reward trade there as well. So those are probably the three setups I'm looking at. Looking at an entry here at 29,000, stop below here, an entry, and then a laddered entry at 28,000. So I'd be taking a long entry at 28,000, a long entry at the mid 27,000 range. I think those are two setups, right? And then if we were to not go back to 29,000 for any reason, I'm probably looking and I'm waiting for something here at the resistance. I might be looking to short at that resistance if I see that it's getting rejected there. If we see a clean break above this, then I'd potentially be looking for a long, but there's a lot of resistance up here. So then I'd potentially be looking for a short at these levels. So it's gonna depend on price action overall, right? So if you guys are interested in seeing and knowing exactly what it is that I'm doing every single day, as far as trades, you guys can join my Discord. The link to that is in the description below, where I basically on Mondays I post a huge market analysis where I kind of break down every single time frame, starting up at the top at the monthly, going to the weekly, going into the daily, going into the 4 hours, and I kind of give breakdowns on all that. And then throughout the week I post trade setups that I'm personally taking myself. So that's all available for you guys in the Discord. But that's pretty much it. That's what I'm going to be looking for. That's kind of how I'm going to be playing this going forward here this week. And depending what happens, I'll be looking to make some other moves. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. Now that we've gone over all of this, let's go ahead and jump into some Q&A. So first I'm going to take a look here at the comments here on the live stream to see if we got anything. And then we're going to, I'm going to take a look at the questions that I got back on Instagram. So let's see. All right, so 300 Rivers here. What's going on, man? I appreciate you tuning in. He's asking about a video I did last week on Chain Broker. He's asking, can you tell me what those buyers spent and if they have sold or not, and when? So on there, you can actually see a lot of that information if you go onto the site. So the site is chainbroker.io, and if you go to the actual coin, let me pull it up here on the screen. So let's say, for example, let me make sure. Let me put it up on the screen. Hang on, there you go. So let's say, for example, if we go to their most recently invested, right? We see the most recent project was Sui. If we go to the actual project, if we click on it, we can kind of see it gives us a lot of information. If we scroll down a bit, you can see where it was sold, the public sales, where it all happened. You can see the vesting schedule. So that's very important. You can see the token distribution chart, and the vesting description, and you can and this is a big one here. You can see the token unlocks. So remember, this happens all the time, and there's sometimes that there's bigger unlocks than other periods. So for example, you can see that token unlocks from May to April, the amount was 1.27 million. But then on August 2nd, this is coming up in 2 days, there's a token unlock for the public 2 round for 35.1 million, right? And then we have another one on September 2nd, 35.1 million. On October 2nd, 35.1 million. Then on November 2nd, $48 million. And again, you can see all the token unlocked, and this could drastically affect the price, because this means $48 million is coming onto the market and they could potentially sell. So this is a good way. And not only this, you're asking about how much they might have been sold already. So this is how much has already been unlocked. You can look at the past, what's already been unlocked on what dates, and you can look at the future dates where the unlocks are coming up. So, right now you can see that the current unlocks are very small, 0.03%. But in 2 days, we have a 7.69% unlock, right? And that's going forward, it looks like a lot of the unlocks are going to be very, very big amounts just like that. So these are all good things to kind of take note of and know what's going on with it. Also, you can see everyone who bought, right? All the backers. You can see everyone who backed this project. So if you look at, for example, if you're trying to figure out if they have sold or not yet, you can see when they, when was it that they invested? Did they invest Series A? Did they invest Series B? So you can kind of take a look at that, right? So A16Z invested Series A, and then look for the Series A round and when their unlocks are coming, right? So you can see vesting period, 12 months cliffs, then 25 months vesting. So I was like, okay, so A16Z, we're not going to know whether or not they're holding it or they sold, but we're going to know that they were in Series A. So it's a 12-month cliff and then 25 months vesting. So, and then you can come down here and you can see the dates on when all that happens. So you're not, I don't think, and I don't know, I might be wrong. I don't know if there's a way to know exactly what an investor has in their portfolio, someone that invested like this, but this can give you an idea of.
You gotta track wallets at that rate.
What's that?
You gotta track people's wallets at that rate.
Exactly. So like, unless you're tracking their exact wallets, you won't know for sure when they sold or when they're selling. But you can have an idea by looking at the token unlocks when it is that they're getting their tokens. So that's pretty much as close as you can get to kind of, figuring that out. If they might have sold, if they might still be holding, and all that. So hopefully that answered your question. I try to answer that as best as possible. And for those of you that didn't get to see that video, check that video out. It's up on the YouTube page, so you guys can check it out. It's the most recent video that I put out. Not a short form video, the most recent long video that I put out. I put that out last week on Wednesday. All right, so let's take a look at what other questions we have. I'm gonna pull up the questions that we got on Instagram here. So the first one here is let's see. So I'm gonna give this one to the BTC Queen. Is Coinbase going to delist everything since the SEC told them to? What are your thoughts?
To be honest, I don't think so. I think that unless the courts like tell them that they need to halt things, for like compliance reasons, I don't think they will. Brian Armstrong has already expressed his feelings towards this, saying that it would have literally crippled their entire business and they wouldn't be running pretty much if they did that. And then they're still not providing clarity over things, and they're losing courts in the case. Right? They're losing cases in the court. Sorry, I said that backwards. As we saw with Ripple. So no, I don't think that they will be delisting anything anytime soon unless the court tells them to. Which at that point in time they're siding with the SEC. These things don't actually make any sense at this point in time. In my opinion, it is not safe to do anything on a centralized exchange besides, getting in and getting out if you have to.
Right.
Or making quick things. You should not keep anything on an exchange long term. You shouldn't keep anything on any platforms long term. That is my basic philosophy because it's just not a good idea, and I don't think it's safe. We've seen, we've seen this play down, time and time again. And the last thing you want is your assets to be frozen while there is a dispute in court, even if it's liquid, right? Even if it's liquid, even if the money is there, you don't want to not have access to it.
Right.
So that's pretty much the verdict there.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of answers the next question that we got here, which is Coinbase a good platform to use? And I think you pretty much answered that already. It's
not a bad platform.
Right.
It's not, you're not just gonna lose your money. But again, do you want your money caught up sitting on an exchange that tracks your every move? And, if the court says, hey, you got to freeze these funds, your funds are frozen and that's it. Mm-hmm. You can't get them off.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing ever, right? If the court says, hey, we're going to freeze your bank, that's it. Your bank's frozen. Your funds are frozen. You can't do anything. And that's not great.
Yeah.
Don't invest anything you can't lose, but however, make sure you protect your assets.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I would say that, Coinbase is probably one of the safest options because it's a publicly traded company. So they have to abide by a lot of laws and rules. But as you can see, even with all that, the SEC is still trying to go after them. So, it's fine to use it for on-ramp, off-ramp. If you're keeping small amounts on there for, whatever it is you might be doing. If maybe you're using it to DCA into some altcoins or something. But for anything long-term and any big amounts, I would say, make sure to keep that off of any centralized platform. Again, not your keys, not your wallet. We've seen this too many times. Again, I think Coinbase is probably one of the safer options, but still, you always want to be on the safest side of all of that. So let's see what else. So somebody asked, how do you calculate how much to take in profit when we're in highs? So it sounds like they're basically asking, when is the right time to take profit once we're in the bull market, right? And my answer to that is during the bull market, my game plan is almost the same thing as during the bear market, except it's flipped, right? So what is it that we've been saying throughout, all this bear market? Accumulate, right? Buy dips, accumulate, do your research, find your favorite projects, and accumulate those for the long term for the next few years, because we've seen it in history. The bull market is going to return. It's going to come back, and you create wealth. You create your real wealth, accumulating when the prices are down, not when prices are already up. Once they're up, it's too late, right? So that's the biggest mistake I think most beginners make, is that when there's no hype, there's no media hype covering crypto, they're not interested. There's no interest in it, right? So they're not buying. People are not investing. Once media hype comes around, once they start hearing about it over and over again, their friends start telling them about it. Guess what? At that point, it's too late, because prices, the reason that it's hyped up is because prices are going high, right? And they're already too high. So you've missed out on your opportunity. So the way I play it is, during the bear market, I'm DCAing, dollar cost averaging, into my favorite projects, right? That I believe in for long term. After that, once we're in the bull market, once the frenzy begins, that it happens every single time, once we start hitting new all-time highs, all that, I start to DCA, dollar cost average, but out of those projects, right? So now I'm taking profit weekly, the same way, because I'm doing it weekly right now, and during a bull run I do it weekly. But instead of adding to my positions, now I'm taking out of my positions, and I start by taking out what I've invested in cash into crypto during the bear market. I want to make sure that I realize all that, so then I'm writing risk free, right? So now I'm writing risk free, and then I start taking profits, so that by the end of the bull run, I'm never all in fiat, and I'm never all in cash. I'm never completely 100% out, but I want at least a good portion, more than 50% out at that point by the time we hit the end of the bull run, right? So that's pretty much how I play it, to take profits once we're in the bull run. So that's a great question. Let's see. It's already 2 o'clock, so I'm gonna take one more question here. This is an easy one. I'm gonna give this one to BTC Queen. We could both answer this one. When moon?
When moon? Well, depends what you're trying to moon on. Because apparently, if you're playing around with meme coins, some guy made $1 million off $500 on, Coinbase's layer 2. You can moon whenever. When moon, like the entire market, like Bitcoin runs, probably within some point in time within the next 2 years, just to say a safe timeline.
Yeah. I basically agree with that same thing. I think, we've been talking about it, 2024, 2025. That's the year, 2024, we get the halving, and it's known that after the halving is when Bitcoin's price really takes off and crypto really takes off. I'm basically expecting the same thing. 2024, 2025, I think we're going to have, again, this year's going to be green. We're going to end in the green. And I think then going into next year is going to be another green year. The year after 2025, also another green year, where we probably hit all-time highs at that point. So, I think we have the same answer for that. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I appreciate you guys, everyone who tuned in. If you guys missed it, you can watch this. You can replay it now once we end the stream here on the YouTube channel. You can also check it out. I'll have it up and running tomorrow on the podcast. So you can check us out. Let's Talk Crypto on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or anywhere, wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. It'll be up there tomorrow morning. And you can play it back. Maybe you missed something. I like to play back my podcast at like 1.25x, 1.5x, depending how fast people speak. And I think that's a great way to really run through these podcasts and get all that information in. Sometimes you might catch something that you might have missed earlier. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I appreciate everyone who tuned in. Thank you, guys. Everyone who sent in their questions. Remember that we're live every single Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we should see you guys this weekend. I actually have a trip but I will be back on Monday morning, so I should be good for Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Worst case scenario, I might stretch it, move it to 2 p.m. I think, but I should be good. I'm actually going to Cuba this weekend for the second time in my life. So second time actually this year.
With his homeland.
Yeah, going back to my homeland, guys. So if you guys don't know, my family's originally from Cuba. I was born here in the U.S., but my family is originally from Cuba. So I'm gonna go visit the main one of the main cities this time around. So I'm very excited for that. Hopefully everything goes good, and I'm back here Monday for Let's Talk Crypto. So I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys on the next one. Again, thank you, BTC Queen, for joining me once again. See you guys. As always, peace and love.